Okay, so the title of this evening's shiur is Understanding Karbanos During Turbulent Times. I'd like to look at page number 1. I would like to present you with one of the most famous machlokasim, most famous disputes regarding the offering of Karbanos insofar as their origin is concerned. And then, after we look at that, to move on to a wider net of understanding in terms of what Karbanos really is supposed to represent for us at all times, and I think particularly at this time as well. So let's look at page number 1. Hopefully all of you have the notes, okay? Vayikra el Moshe, the opening pasuk in this week's Parshat, Vayidaber Hashem elav me'ohel moed lemar. Kadosh Baruch Hu calls to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he speaks to him from the Ohel Moed, and he instructs him, Daber b'nei Yisrael v'amarta alehem, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban lashem. When man, and this terminology is specifically chosen, will offer from yourselves a korban to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, whether it's min a behema, min a bakar, min a tzon, takubis korban, whether it's brought from an animal such as a bakar, such as a part of the law, what we commonly refer to as livestock, which means bulls, min a tzon, which will incorporate both lambs and izim and goats. So there's first presented the halachos of an olah. An olah is kolol ala mizbeach. An olah is offered up in its entirety on the mizbeach, and the only thing that comes off of it, as it were, off the mizbeach, off the altar, is the skin that's given to the kohanim. And we have the halachos pertaining to the smicha, to the placing of the kohen, of the baal, of the owner's hands on its head, and then the shechita, the slaughter, and then the various forms, the various stages of the hakrava itself, the kabbalah sadam, the receipt of the blood, the halacha, the transporting it to the mizbeach, the zrika on the mizbeach, etc. Ultimately, after the animal has been flayed, after its different parts have been dismembered and placed upon the mizbeach, so you'll see in paragraph number 1, it says, what is the purpose of all of this? Ishei reach nichoach lashem. It is to produce an ishei, it is produced a carbon, something that is placed on the fire, reach nichoach, of a scent, of a smell, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And my question number 1 is, what in the world does that mean? We know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not human, so whereas it's true that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do anything in the world, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't normally have a sense of smell. He's not a human being. He's not a creature. So what does it mean that he has this scent of smell? And moreover, why is it in fact that the lashon of achila, that the lashon of consumption, the language of reference of consumption is not used? After all, we say effectively that things are eaten on the mizbeach. Why is it ishei reach nichoach lashem? So the Ramban on this pasuk, on pasuk tes, states as follows. This is in paragraph number 2 on sheet number 1. The Ramban says, he begins here, I jumped into the middle of it, and he begins his citation of the Rambam from the Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim. Kitam harabba Moreh Nevuchim, he's explaining the origin of Karbanos, and he says, according to the Rambam, as it appears in Moreh Nevuchim, Kitam Karbanos, that the whole reason the Rambam explains for sacrifices is Bavur Sheha Mitzrim V'Hakastim Asher Hoy Yisrael Geirim V'Toshavim Ba'artzam, the Egyptians and the Kasdim, amongst who the Jews resided as Geirim, as foreigners, or Toshavim, or residents in their lands, the time of Bavel, Me'olam Hayu Ovdin the Bakar, they would what? Those people in whose midst the Jews live were constantly serving their gods, small g, and they were serving what? The bakar v'latzon. They were serving the livestock, these animals, and the sheep as gods. Ki hamitzrim ovdin l'tlep, because the Egyptians, in fact, used to what? They used to serve. They used to give obedience to the tlep, to the sheep. The kasdim and the kasdim ovdin l'shedim, they used to serve the shedim. We commonly translate shedim as referring to demons. Asher yerol lahem b'dmus se'irim, who supposedly used to appear to them in the form of goats. And the Rambam said, and even in time of the Rambam, that the people who lived in India until that very day, would never slaughter the animals, the cows, the bulls. Why? Right? because they deified them. And consequently, explains the Rambam, Bavur Cain, therefore, oh, I forgot to do one important thing. Hold on, don't go anywhere, please. Okay, no, good. And therefore, the Rambam explains, Bavur Cain, therefore, since these animals used to be worshipped by the Umos Ha'olam, by the nations of the world, Siva Lishchot Eila Hashlosha Minin, the Shem HaNechbad. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu specifically chose, when speaking about our Karbanos, our sacrifices that can be brought, whether it was in the Mishkan or ultimately in the Beis HaMikdash, they were basically assigned to three types of animals. The bull, right? Or a form of sheep or a form of goat. Why? Kedei she'yivada, so that in order to let it be known and understood, ki hadavar shehu yichoshim, ki hein betachlis ha'avera, in order for people to understand that the very subject of the idol worship of others, hu asher yakrivu leborei, should specifically be chosen by a Kadosh Baruch Hu, by the Kelach, by God, to be given to his people to sacrifice those very animals to him. And consequently, and through the agency of sacrificing the animals that were deified by the non-Jewish nation, there would be achieved an atonement for the sins. And why is that the case? Why do we have to use the very medium of sin itself, as it were? Because specifically, the beliefs that were erroneous could first be remedied and healed and corrected, because by what? By the utilization of the very disease itself. Because all of us know, says the Rambam. Remember, the Rambam was a physician. He spent most of his day being a doctor, and he chapped a right. He was able to learn whatever he mastered, which was Kala Torah Kula, in the hours aside from when he was treating the Sultan and other people. Because every type of disease and every sickness, like Yisrapa, says the Rambam, every physician knows, is that anything that needs to be fought off and anything that needs to be remedied and healed can only be done so, as a rule, ki'im b'hafcho, only by utilizing the very thing itself in opposite form. And all of us know that all of our medications, as a rule, and boy, do we ever need one now, consists of what? Consists of the very same thing that is attacking us. We need antigens within our bodies to effectively serve as the antidote to that which is preying upon us anew from the same family, as it were. So therefore, according to the Rambam, as cited by the Ramban, why do we have Karbanos? In order for Kadosh Baruch Hu to tip everything 180 degrees on its head and show us that the very things that were chosen by the Umos Ha'olam, by the nations beyond Israel, to be deified and worshipped as avodah zarah, as idolatry, those very things can in and of themselves be acceptable, and not just acceptable, be chosen by God to be Karbanos to him. Next paragraph, bottom paragraph on page number 1. So continues the Ramban, Nachmanides, after studying the Rambam, he says, where I blacken the letters, Vahim Divrei Havai, he says, and these words of the Rambam are kind of hollow. They're rather absurd, as it were. Because at the end of the day, to try to plug such an enormous problem insofar as idolatry, by using these very same things, and therefore explaining to us that that's the purpose of Karbanos, Yasu Shulchan Hashem Mego'o, it will effectively pollute the Shulchan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? The altar of God upon which the sacrifices are brought. In order to what? In order that we'll sacrifice these animals on the altar that we erect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to God, by his command, specifically for what purpose? Specifically and only in order to address the people in the universe who are ridiculous and who are fools? That doesn't make sense, says the Ramban. Is everyone still with me? Because my phone had gone off. Yes?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So now skip to the bottom of the paragraph on page number 1, the last line. The Ramban then continues and says, the Ramban, after he says this, that it's absurd, he says, V'hakasav Amar, and we have a very psukim that say what? That these are brought for what purpose? We just saw it in Sefer Vayikra, its opening of the entire book that deals with Karbanot and Avoda within the Mishkan and the Batei Mikdash. Its purpose is to create a reich nichoach, a wonderful, sweet aroma scent to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it can't be possible that it's because of what the Rambam has suggested. And he continues and explains as well that it would be absurd to do this and effectively strengthen and solidify and give even greater succor to the nations, right, who would serve the constellations whom they held were in the shapes of the very things that we're going to end up sacrificing. In their eyes, it would be a greater proof that those things indeed are worthy of being deified. Bottom of the paragraph, V'hinei Noach, where I've blackened it, V'hinei Noach, but Chesem and Teva. And Noach, says the Ramban, when he left the Teva, in Shloshes Spano, page number 2, top, with his 3 sons, Ein ba'olam kasti o Mitzri. When Noach left the Teva with Shem, Cham, and Yafes and the respective wives, there weren't any Kasdiim. There wasn't anyone there, right? From Kasdim. There wasn't anyone on the ground, on the terra firma upon which they stepped from the Teva. There weren't any Egyptians, because there was no one alive other than these people in the Teva. And yet, when he came out, he grieved Korban. What was the first thing that he did? He brought a Korban, he brought a sacrifice to Kodesh Baruch Hu. And the Pasuk says, right? And we're told Vayikra ve'eni Hashem that it was Mosei Chen, that Kodesh Baruch Hu looked upon it with great favor. The Yom Arbo, and not only did he look at it with great favor, but the Pasuk says, Vayorach Hashem esreich hanichoach, Kodesh Baruch Hu smelled the sweet aroma arising from the Karban of Noach. Umimenu Omar, and as a result of that sacrifice offered by Noach, Omar Alibo, the Pasuk tells us that Kodesh Baruch Hu said to himself, what did he say? Lo osif od lekalal eso adama ba'avor ha'adam. I will no longer what? I will no longer continue to curse what? I will no longer continue to curse the earth as a result of what? Of man's, right? As a result of man's actions. So it means that there's something very positive here. And sacrifices were not being brought to offset the idolatry, the use of animals insofar as idolatry. And not only by Noach, but we know that Hevel and Kayim brought sacrifices. Hevel brought from his right, from the choicest of his flock, and it was accepted by a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Vayisha Hashem al Hevel ve'amon chaso. Oh, Bilam Amar, and even Bilam, when he was hired, right, by Balak Melech Moab, when Bilam was hired to curse Klal Yisrael, before cursing and before going to the different places where he would see from above the encampments of Klal Yisrael, and he would try to curse them, though he was never successful, Bilam said, "Es shiva mizbachos arachti va'al parva'ayav b'mizbeach." He refers to the various sacrifices that he indeed offered to our Kodesh Baruch Hu. So what's going on, says the Rambam? What do you mean it's only to offset idolatry? Next paragraph on page number 2, where it's black in V'yoser roy l'shmo hatam she'omrim bahem ki ba'avur shema'aseh b'nei adam nigmorin b'machshava u'v'dibur u'v'maisa. Ramban says that it would appear to me to be far more logical to understand that because man's orbit, basically, all of our actions, all of our existence, pretty much encompasses 3 dimensions. Machshava, thought, bedibor, speech, that's what differentiates man from beast, uvamaisa, and action. So because these are the 3 expressions of man's life existence, Tziva Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu thus commanded, Kikasher Yechte, that when man who has these 3 qualities, Machshava, thought, speech, and action, when he will sin, right? When we sin, Yavi Karban, he should bring a sacrifice. Yismach Yodav Alav, place his hands upon it. Place his hands upon it, because that's involving a physical action of his body, keneged ha'maisa. That will address the actions that a person does inappropriately or fails to do. The Yisvada bepiv, and he will first, right, before the animal is shechted, he will, when he places his hands upon the animal's head, he will confess his sins. That's keneged hadibur. That's aligned with what? With speech that at times is used inappropriately, but it defines who we are. The Yisrov ba'esh hakerev akloyos, and then what do we place on the fire? The innards, the kidneys, shehem kleya machshava v'aytaiva, that represent in one form or another the vessels of thought or taiva, v'hakrayim, and the legs, the feet, keneged yodav v'raglav. An animal has 4 feet. The front 2 are like his hands. The back 2 are like his feet. Shalodam ha'osim komalachto. The yizrok hadam al mizbeach, and then after the animal is shechted, and these are placed upon the mizbeach, then his blood is thrown, is cast upon the altar, keneged dama b'nafsho, in alignment with the heart of an individual. All towards what? In order for man to understand, as he does all these, that he has sinned to his God, begufo, with his body, ubanafsho, and with his soul, roilo shafek domo, v'yisaref gufo, and really what he's deserving of is for him, is for his physical self, his physical blood, his physical body, to be offered, as it were, to be sacrificed and sent up to God. Lule chesed abori, were it not for the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shelokach memenu temura, who was willing to accept an exchange for him literally offering himself. V'chiper hakorban hazeh, sheyehei domo tachas domo, nefesh tachas nefesh, v'rashi yevore, hakorban geneg rashi yevarov, etc. And everything that is brought upon the altar effectively serves as an exchange for himself. So in contradistinction to the Rambam, who maintained in the Moreh Nevuchim that Karbanos were set in place by HaKadosh Baruch Hu and presented to the Jewish people as an antidote for the setting in which they found themselves for endless years of seeing people deify them, the Ramban maintains that no, it has nothing to do with the deification of these animals, but rather we choose to close the gap between ourselves and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the distance created by sin, by offering something in lieu of ourselves, representative of our 3 dimensions of existence, machshava, maisa, and dibur. However, even though this is the famous machlokas between the Rambam and the Ramban, I do point out to you on the bottom of page number 2 that the Rambam himself, Moreh Nevuchim, is a work of machshava, a philosophy. The Yarech HaZaka, in which the Rambam codifies all the halachas for Klal Yisrael based upon Shas, in Hilchos Melachim Milcham, in the portion dealing with kings and the wars, in the 11th chapter in Perek Achadasar, he says, HaMelech HaMashiach, Mashiach, the King Mashiach, for whom we so pine, Asir Lamo, will ultimately arise, L'Haksar Malchus David, the Yashna, and he will return the kingdom and kingship of the Davidic dynasty to where it should be. The Memshala Harishona, to its what? To its first governance, as it were. Ubana HaMikdash, and he will be able to construct the 3rd bias. Or Makabe Sidchei Yisrael, and he will ingather the Jews from all over the world. And all of the laws that are to govern Klal Yisrael based upon the Torah will be restored in efficacy. And then what does the Rambam say? Makriv and Karbanos, and we will offer sacrifices. The Yosin Shmitin, the Yovlos, Kechometzvos, and Ruba Torah, and everything in the land of Israel will function in accordance with the ways that the land is supposed to be treated. Every 7 years, right? Shemitah, every 50 years, Yovel. So Rambam clearly says that Makriv and Karbanos, we're going to offer Karbanos. Why? In the time of the Mashiach, everyone is going to understand and going to accept the monotheism of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what are we going to be Makriv Karbanos for? You see that according to the Rambam, it's not so pashut whatsoever that it was done solely for the reason presented in the Moreh Nevuchim. This having been said, let me turn your attention to page number 3, where we will have presented for ourselves from our good friend Chaim Yaakov Goldvich Zatzal, the Rosh Yeshiva of Kerem B'Yavne, an insight into Karbanos, both from the historical perspective, and I think so greatly as it applies to us today as well. Page number 3, we have the citation of the Psukim of Noach and his sons and the respective wives leaving the Teva, and he offered Karbanos. Vayarach Hashem Esreich L'Hanichoach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu smells the wonderful aroma. Vayom Hashem Alibo, when Kadosh Baruch Hu says to himself, Lo Osef El Kal Al Odes Adam, he says, you know what? I will no longer continue to curse the earth. Ba'avur ha'adam. Ba'avur ha'adam. How would we normally translate Ba'avur ha'adam? I would have translated it as because of man. Bear it in mind for something else we're going to see in tonight's shiur. Continues of Goldvich, and he says, he cites a picture of Eliezer, a medrash, where I've underlined it, page number 3. Yoshev Noach v'yomar. When Noach came out of the Teva, I'm sure the first thing he did was probably kiss the earth. And then he sat down and he wiped his brow. And he said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu hitzilani mimei hamama. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has saved me from the waters, the torrential waters of the flood, in which the entire world was otherwise decimated. Va'ani chai v'hakar the form of karban v'olos. So I have the obligation to sacrifice and to bring before him sacrifices, olos, that are entirely consumed. And exactly what design or what form did the Karban of Noach that was offered assume? What kind of Karban was it? Given the fact that as a result of its having been offered, the world, never mind Noach, the world, as a result of the sacrifice brought by Noach, was given the promise, bivris kiyum masmid, with an eternal covenant from God that it would never, ever, ever again be destroyed. My gosh, what kind of Karban was it? So says the Medrash in Bereshis Rabbah, Kadosh Baruch Hu inhaled the wonderful aroma from the sacrifice. Says the Medrash, you want to know what it smelled like? What did it smell like? Kadosh Baruch Hu smelled the Karban of Noach, and he went, I could smell Avraham. I could smell Avraham. I could smell the fires of the Kivshan Ha'esh into which Avraham was thrown and was willing to die in there on behalf of a Kodesh Baruch. Reach shel Hanani Mishav Azariah. I can smell the fires into which Hanani Mishav Azariah were thrown by Nebuchadnezzar. And when they came out, I can smell it. Reach Mesiras Nefesh shel Dorosh Hashmad. I can smell the Mesiras Nefesh of every generation in which people were ready to give their lives, and so many of them did give their lives on behalf of a Kodesh Baruch. Bottom paragraph. This sacrifice brought by Noach, you think it was just any old Karban? No. The Chachamim teach us, it wasn't simply any old dry kind of a Karban, another Karban being introduced. This Karban, it may have looked just like any other Karbanola, but it was infused within it was the Mesiras Nefesh, was the readiness of self-sacrifice. And it was that, the bringing and introduction of that particular sacrifice by Noah, that enabled and equipped creation itself post-Mabul, Briski or Masmid, an eternal covenant with God never to be destroyed again. Zechus, a merit, Shelo hushar ta'ala olam, hushras ta'ala olam, hakadam mabuli. A zechus, a merit that was not embedded nor granted to the world that existed pre-Mabul. In other words, embodied within that Karban offered by Noach upon exiting from the Teva, there was effectively a transformation within Noach that occurred within Noach, and thus society at large for posterity. What was that transformation? Page number 4 says, Rav Goldvich, Olam Chesed Yiboneh. We've touched upon this in our shiurim, that the world was created by a Kodesh Baruch Hu. I even made reference to it in a little Parshat video that that hopefully many of you got today on the Parshat Vayikra. The world was created, David HaMelech says, Olam Chesed Yibana, out of pure kindness by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pure kindness. However, says of Goldich, we need to understand, second line where I've underlined it, She'even apina hamer kazis bevinyas ha'olam hu midas ha'chesed, that the very cornerstone and the foundation of the world was this midah, was this characteristic of chesed. So in other words, kindness is not simply the reason that the world was created, which it was, but going beyond that, it remained not simply one of the three pillars upon which the world rests, right? We say, ala Torah, ala Avod, v'agmilas chasadim, on Torah and service of Kodesh Baruch Hu and upon kindness. It's not simply one of the characteristics of the direction we are supposed to attain in this life, but actually it's supposed to be the very foundation. Olam Chesed Yibana, it wasn't simply created by God as a result of his kindness, his unbridled and unfathomable kindness for man, but it was created by God for that and founded upon chesed, upon kindness. Memela, follow the arrow down to the next paragraph on the sheets. Memela hareinu lemeidim, we can therefore understand from this, shehi mahava gam kein tashtis ve'even pina l'anhogas ha'adam v'olam shalom. If kindness serves not simply as the cause and reason for the creation of the world, but it serves as the foundation of the world, then it need be so, says the Goldich, that obviously it needs serve as well as the foundation for the comportment of man within this world. Page number 5. Second paragraph, page number 5. Skulas hanesina, says of Goldich, it means, in a word, that the notion of giving beyond myself, Heina efo tchuna besisis sherak ba'akeva umikocha misafsher kiyumo shel olam. That only as a result of man's understanding of his responsibility to give beyond himself can there be effectively a continuance of the world. The Dor HaMabul, you know what happened in the generation of the Mabul, says of Goldich, the one that was destroyed other than Noach and his family? You know, if we look at them, or we look at the opening Sukkim in the Seder of Noach, they indeed transgressed the most heinous sins that we have found in the Torah. Avodah Zarah, idolatry, Gili Arayos, licentiousness, two of the three cardinal sins for which we need lay down our lives. But even though Avodah Zarah and Gili Arayos were rampant, they were insufficient. The Golal Aleim Gazardin, to cause a Kadosh Baruch Hu to roll upon them, as it were, the edict, to roll upon them the edict of the destruction of the world. Until added to their sins of idolatry and licentiousness was added the sin of theft. Matter of fact, Rashi, you've learned this from me. Rashi learns, he cites the Chazal, that they were also stealing specifically Pachas Mishel Pruta, less than the value of Pruta, the smallest amount of money that one could go to court for. Shekein Omer Chachamim, the Chachamim said clearly, Shalom Nechtam Gzardinam, that their lot in life of deserving destruction was not sealed until until what? The Gemara Sanhedrin tells us, until they stretched their hands out to steal from each other. Only when they started stealing from each other and they thoroughly removed themselves from the pale of any kind, any remote semblance of chesed, kindness between one and another, rak be'ikvo zeh, only as a result of this, avad ha'olam was the world destroyed, right? Ibed ha'olam es yicholes v'kosher kiyumo, did the world what? Avad ha'olam was the world removed from the possibility of continuance. As we find subsequently amongst the people of Sodom and the Sedra, as well of Lech Lecha, right? I'm sorry, Vayikra rather, and who, of course, as well, similarly, are deserving of the receipt of destruction. Next paragraph. Therefore, since the world prior to the Mabul removed themselves from the pale of any semblance of kindness, and only the world after the Mabul, namely when Noach and his family were saved and exited the Teva, the ark, if the world ultimately, at that point in time first, received the eternal covenant that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to them, I will see to it that that man will never, ever, ever be wiped away from the face of the earth. From here we can understandably, therefore, perforce deduce that the underpinning foundation of the world that was instilled within the existence of the world by Noach in his offering this Karban after he exited from the Teva, after the Mabul, created a sounder foundation and more complete and eternal foundation for the world than had existed prior to the Mabul itself. It says of Goldich, when Noach Motzah Chaim, the Parshat starts off, Ela told us Noach, right? Noach, each tzaddik tomim hoyu b'dorosav esel kim esalach Noach, right? But by the end of what? Of Parsha Bereshis, before Parsha Noach, it says, Noach Motzah Chaim, Kadosh Baruch Hu decided he's going to destroy everybody, but Noach found favor. Says the Medrash, Afil Noach shenishtayim mehem, even Noach who found favor, who ultimately ends up being spared, Moshe Hayakadai wasn't spared because he was deserving of being spared. And the Shematzachim, but the Kadosh Baruch Hu had a soft spot for him. He found favor in God's eyes. So what does it mean he wasn't deserving of it? Next paragraph. It's clear by that pasuk that we're being informed of is that what? That the generation in which Noach lived imparted a stain upon him as well. And so far as Noach was concerned, Noach, much as everyone else, were thoroughly bereft of the quality of kindness, which serves as the foundation of the world, which when absent in totality results in the destruction of the world, because if you remove the foundation, if you remove the seat upon which you're sitting, you fall straight down. Noach was also blemished in this regard. How do we know? Well, simply, we've underlined it. It's expressed in the fact because even though he worked on the table for 120 years, he didn't go out and start a Kiruv Rechokim campaign. He didn't reach out to his next door neighbor, right, who didn't necessarily share his own understandings and belief in God. He didn't try to change anybody else. Lo limdo is doram ladas es Hashem, says Esfarno. He didn't try. He didn't even try. Never mind succeed. He didn't try to teach the rest of his generation to truly know God, like Avram and Moshe and Shmuel and others have done historically. And you know what happens when a person doesn't try to save others? He doesn't even daven for them because they're not a blip on his screen. They're not on his radar. I mean, I dare say, when we daven for Enu nowadays, so now Nebuch, we have names of other people who are sick, but originally it was just Eliezer Yitzchak ben Shifra, the fellow, the lawyer from New Rochelle. So I'm sure that tons of people said in the middle of Rifa'enu, to whom? To Eliezer Yitzchak ben Shifra u'mishpachto v'chol cholek coronavirus. Because if you know that others exist and are suffering, and you feel for them, you have any kind of shaychus with them, association, then you daven for them. Well, Noach didn't try to bring anybody else close. He knew the world was going to be destroyed, and he didn't daven for them because they weren't on his screen. So you know what was the only refuah possible? You know what was the only antidote for this terrible, terrible absence of kindness? upon which the world was founded and had been removed by the people. The Chachamim understood that what? That the Ark of Noah, Levad Meshef Yosa Avur Noach B'Banav, that not only was it a what? Not only was it obviously a safety raft for Noach and his family, not only was it a Kereshat Sala Mipuros Nasan Shomei Mabo, not only was it a beam, a floating beam of the water that they were able to grab onto, as it were. But the Chachamim understood that, you know what other purpose the existence of the Teva of that entire year served? Gamke mikvah tara. It became a what? It became waters. It became a mikvah, an embodiment of purity. Page number 6. The pasuk said in instruction of Kodesh Baruch Hu's instruction to Noah, "Kidem tasas sateva." You should make all of the different portals, all the different compartments for all the behemoths. Rabbi Yitzchak, all the animals and the people. Rabbi Yitzchak said, why is it referred to as kinim? Why did it say chadarim? Chadarim tasas sateva. Make different rooms in the table. Why kinim? So it's a play on words, because kinim can mean what? It can mean a little area, a little room, and it could also come from the Lashon language of a cane, which means what? Which means a nesting of birds, a pair of birds. And just like birds were taken in the purification process of a person who had leprosy, so too HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Medrash explains, was saying to Noach in his instruction to make these kinim, he was saying to Noach, the next year is going to be the year of your life. But it's going to be an ark that doesn't simply save you, it's going to purify you. So we can deduce and understand from these things that the purpose of the teva wasn't simply to save them physically, but it was to radically change them spiritually. The teva, the ark, served effectively as a laboratory of field work for Noach and his family, and thus for mankind going forward. And when Avram, after the war of the 4 kings and 5 kings, and then Avram went and he rescued Lot, and he defeated, right, the stronger 4 kings. So, and Melchizedek came out to him, bringing him wine, right, and lechem v'yayim. Shomer Avram Melchizedek, when he turned to Melchizedek, who, a.k.a. also known as Shem, he asked Melchizedek, he asked Shem, after they discussed the war, no doubt, and they were breaking bread and they were drinking wine, Avram turned to him and said, by the way, how did you ever get out of the table? What do you mean, how did you ever get out of the table? The rain stopped, Baruch Hashem. We know that he sent around the dove. He knew that he could get out safely, and he went out. What do you mean, how did he get out? Amar lo. Shem answered, the question Avram was asking him was, how were you ever deserving of getting off the teva? Not how did you physically exit. Wherein were you deserving of getting off the teva? To which Shem responded, you know how? You know why? With all the charity work that we did on behalf of all the animals and the fowl. We never got a good night's sleep. We were serving them every night. I guess each animal probably had one of those little bells, inside its room. Rang the bell, room service, called the front desk, and asked Noah to bring him some, and his sons to bring him some food. Next paragraph. Shana Tamima. A whole year, Nitzav Noach Dorach, Noach stood poised with his family, like a soldier on the battlefield, to respond to the different demands of his guests. Was a year, the whole year was filled with giving and giving and giving and giving and bringing them nearer to him and showing them the love that he had for them, that he cared about their existence, being saved from destruction as well. And anything they needed, if it was sick, he tended to it. If it was hungry, he tended to it. If it was thirsty, he tended to it. And they did all of this specifically in those very close quarters. We picture, I know, I'm sure you like I picture the table as being huge. It is. It's a couple of football fields. But guess what? Now that we've been cooped up for the past 10 days, give or take, self-isolation, if you're cooped up on a huge teva, but with all the animal kinds of species of the world, it's rather claustrophobic. It's rather challenging, let alone if you have to minister to them full time. They spent a year caring for others, and it was needed to enable them to have the schus, to have the merit of leaving the ark. This was the school of giving for Noah and for mankind. If you looked at their faces when they came off the teva, I'm sure they had the hadras ponim of chesed. They had the stamp of chesed that people who would look at them after they were bored, because there was no one else, but were we able to have looked at them, we would have looked at them and said, there goes a kind individual. And you know why they were kind? They didn't start out being kind. It was only because the Kadosh Baruch Hu smiled favor. They took a liking to Noah. He wasn't deserving of it. But they spent a year learning how to be kind. And how does this foundation work? Every display of kindness, call this any turn towards kindness, call this any awakening, any urge, any willingness of giving, whether it be in deed or a thought, is unquestionably rooted in something that we learned years ago together, many of us. Perio shall bito panimi. It's all a function of what? It's rooted and tethered to the notion of self-effacement. Tilo shaladam, because all of us know that the basic nature of man, who has so many different urges and so many different directions for so many different pleasures to be realized and afforded oneself. And if nonetheless, notwithstanding all these pleasures that each and every one of us wishes to afford ourselves, whether for our physical selves, or mamona, or our money, or what money can buy, if we're willing to what? To put that on hold and to give someone else something, then it must be that what? Then if I'm willing to give somebody, let alone something that belongs to me, if I'm willing to help somebody, when I could be out sunning myself, or playing ball, or sipping a pina colada, or learning of Gemara on my own, opening up a sefer, it means that I am a vatel. It means that I have effectively what? I have dwarfed, as it were, and put aside my own desires for what I personally want at this moment. That's what giving is all about. Ein chassid ela mischassid in kono, the bottom of the page number 6. There is no chassid. And when we refer to a chassid, we're not talking about a person who wears a shtreimel or bekesha or a gartel. Ein chassid, there's no person who can truly, of him be it said that he goes lifting Mashira Sadim beyond the letter of the law. Ela mischassid in kono. The only person who can really deal in kindness is a person who what? Who does kindness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it were. Some of you may remember the movie, I think it was, I don't want to get this wrong, my kids will kill me. So I'm not going to quote the name of the movie. But you remember the movie with Prince Ali, right? Right? So that movie, one of the songs was Make Way for Prince Ali. You have to make way for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the king, for the Melech Malchei HaMelachim. And only when we make way for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Only when we make way for God do we engage in kindness, as it were. And can we engage in kindness for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and for others? Page number 7. And that's really what Karbanot symbolizes, says the Asufas Marachos of Goldberg. Karban hu abitui ha'elyon. A sacrifice is the highest expression, and that which is most replete of an example of of the self-effacement that is required by an individual to engage in chesed. And why is that the case? Because effectively, when a person brings a korban and says to Kodesh Baruch Hu, this is in lieu of me, and I know that I really should be giving up my life and my physical self, but this will be in lieu of me, this will be instead of me, this will be substitute for me. What a person is doing effectively is saying, I know I'm deserving of losing everything that I have. And there's nothing greater in life, obviously, than giving of oneself, let alone the entirety of oneself. So therefore, it's not the sheep when offered that's being placed on the altar so much as what? Rather, it's man, as it were, who's being offered up, offering himself up to Kadosh Baruch Hu in his entirety. His entirety, his machshava, his thought process, his maisim, his ability to act physically, and his dibur to speak. And to speak. Bottom of the page. Page number 8. We can understand the statement in Hosea where Kodesh Baruch Hu says, Ki chesed chafasti v'lo zevach. I don't want your karbanos. I want chesed. I want kindness. Yeshul kapara acheres, says Avos Rabbi Nosson. There is a different kind of atonement. An atonement not achieved by the literal karbanos sacrifices brought in the Beis HaMikdash, but an atonement achieved nonetheless by something else. Shehi kavodas Beis HaMikdash, that's just like that which is done in the Beis HaMikdash. Much as atonement is achieved in the Beis HaMikdash by sacrifices, animals, so there's another kind of atonement. What is that? Ve'ezozeh zegmilas chasodim. It's kindnesses. It's the act of kindnesses. The great, right? Chesed mashmo ka'omer hakrava. Kindness means giving up oneself. Ba'al chesed makdish ono to shiaso hono b'chol etzos nafsho. A person who is truly an individual of kindness, he's ready to give of himself, of his knowledge, of his physical self, of his wealth, of anything that he has, of his food, whatever he has, of any storehouses of treasures of knowledge or abilities or insights that he has. As kol asher haya Yaakov as akoy l'nasal asmo, any and all of that which him being in possession of, and thus able to secure and to keep just for himself, whom the father of Atorim is also, he's willing to turn to another or others and give it to them. And therefore we well understand Sheshorish midazo hibitul atzmius is a self-effacement of man. And the submission of it, the harvas karban and the bringing of a karban, is an expression of this. Nefesh tachas nefesh. The greatest avoda, it would appear then, based upon the service of nothing that we can engage in, not having karbanos, not having a Beis HaMikdash, is to try to help others in any way that we can, to lighten their load, to brighten their day, to ease their fears, to comfort them. Bottom of the page says Rav Goldvich, and then we'll say goodbye to Rav Goldvich. Rav Goldvich says in the bottom paragraph, Korban zehayos eifel biti shalom akarosa mechodesh shel Noach. This korban that Noach brought was entire new revelational experience for Noach as he stood on the ground of earth renewed. Because prior to it, this notion of self-effacement did not exist. And that's why, with a thorough lack of chesed, the Dor HaMabul was destroyed. And it never existed, unfortunately, by that time, amongst men. So Karbanos represent our willingness and our recognition of responsibility to sacrifice and to live, and specifically to live beyond ourselves. What a reach nechoach did a Kadosh Baruch Hu smell from Noach's Karban, responding to it with a promise, never, ever, ever, ever again to destroy mankind. Why? Because mankind was now different. Mankind was different in the way that he or she looked upon others in the world. Page number 9. Comes along for edification the Malbim, and the Malbim says, fascinatingly, the Malbim says, page number 9, right-hand column. I'm going to skip In the first part, he simply says that what a Kodesh Baruch Hu, what we ask, why does it say that God smells? Why does it say he eats it? Because God smells ruchnius. You can't eat spirituality. Sometimes you can feel yourself. You can say to yourself that you can smell spirituality. Now, I know this may sound unusual, but the Navi himself explains and describes the ultimate ability of Mashiach as being able to smell when it comes to judgment, to din and mishpat, right? To smell when people are presenting a case before and what the story is. Sometimes you can say, we have the adage, we have the expression, epis, schmeckt epis, something smells in here. It's not right. Can't put my finger on it. It's not palpable. It's not tangible. Nothing I can see, but it doesn't smell right. Kodesh Baruch Hu says in Malbim, when he sees man, when he sees the member of Klal Yisrael bringing a carbon, and the person is bringing himself as a carbon, as it will, then what a Kodesh Baruch Hu smells is the ruchnis, is a spirituality that comes from the carbon brought by the person. Says the Malbim, please look where it says, Vayomer Hashem al libo, Pasuk said, Kodesh Baruch Hu said to himself, we saw this Pasuk, and I told you to make a mental note of it then. Kodesh Baruch Hu said to himself, now that I see that Noach has brought me a carbon, and he was in there for a year, and everything that occurred took place, especially with the explanation that we've offered based upon Rav Goldvich's understanding of it. He says, I will no longer continue to curse earth, ba'avur ha'adam, and we explained it, we defined it as because of man. Says the Malbim, he says, sheyesh hevdel bein ba'avur ubein beglal. He says, there's a whopping difference between ba'avur, the word ba'avur, and bein beglal, and the word beglal. What's the difference? She beglal mitzayin hasiba hakodemes. Because beglal really means because. Uba'avur, and ba'avur doesn't mean so much because as mitzayin hasiba macheres, but rather it means not because, but rather due to or on behalf of. So when the Pasuk says that the Kodesh Baruch Hu smelled the aroma of the carbon offered by Noach, and he said, I will no longer continue to curse earth because of man, which is the way most of us teach the Pasuk. It's the way almost all the Rishonim learn the Pasuk. The way I always understood the Pasuk. I'm no longer going to curse mankind. I'm going to curse the world because of man's nefarious, exposés. But rather, I'm going to hang tight and I'll never destroy them again. Says the Malbim. No, that's not what God said. It's not what it means. He meant I'm no longer going to curse the world on behalf of man. What does that mean? Continues the Malbim. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after the Chet of the Eitz Hadas, when he cursed Chava and told her that she's going to have long periods of gestation and childbirth, and Sargi Labanim and raising children, right? And she will always have to look to her husband, for pleasing etc., whatever. And the Nachash, of course, goes on his belly and he's going to eat from the offer of the Adama. And Adam, right, is and the earth gets cursed and has to be worked and toiled hard by man. When God cursed the earth, it wasn't because of what man had done, which is the simplest way of learning what goes on there. The way that most of us learn Pshat and understand it, that it was a punishment because man cursed. So Adama, from which man Adam was taken from Adama, earth was also cursed. No. God says that I will no longer continue to curse the earth on behalf of man. What does that mean? It means I will no longer continue to curse the earth on behalf of man, on behalf of his purpose, of his needs, and his betterment. Namely, watch this, it'll blow your hats off. God cursed the earth twice. Harisha, the first time HaKadosh Baruch Hu cursed the earth, was following the sin of eating from the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge. Sha'amar, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Arura hadama bavarecha. The earth is cursed for you. And Adam's going to have to toil greatly. The first time that God cursed it, so you know what? It wasn't just a curse and a punishment, as all of us learn. It was a hatava. It was a favor to Adam. Favor? Yeah. Because that's the result of his having eaten from the tree of knowledge. And then there was the confluence of everything worldly, everything material, with everything spiritual within him. The gavru bo ataivos v'tchunos haros, and simultaneously there was to be found within him effectively a torrential storm of lusts and desires, things pulling him away from that which was that he knew prior to the chait that was easily identifiable as good and that which should be embraced. Because of all of that, Kilas Hadama, God cursed the earth, not as a punishment. You know why he cursed it? He cursed the earth because the earth until that point in time in the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, was always producing its bounty without anything required on the part of Adam. Everything was takeout. You just reached down to the ground and you reached up to the trees and you took it off. It was already ready. It was ready, right? It was like going to the Grove or Coach Central to Roma, okay, or to Sylvia's. Takeout, no preparation. And as a result of which, Adam, man, was able to avail himself of food on a daily basis, any moment of the day, without any exertion whatsoever. But as a result of which, how did he spend his time? He had tons of hours, right, which were desolate, during which he would have to fight off and ward off his evil inclination. Uklala, and therefore, you know why God cursed the earth and rendered it ice takeout, and no longer would provide takeout? Uklala the tovaso, he cursed it for the betterment and advantage of man. So that man would have to go to work to produce food. Well, he wouldn't have what? He wouldn't have time to sin. Everybody knows that hundreds of years ago, let alone thousands of years ago, when people had to get up early in the morning or work till late at night, or all the people, right, who had to toil and taking things to the back, going from endless destinations, and there was nothing, there was no form of transportation, real transportation, other than animals. And we didn't have anything of computers or internet or watches or phones or refrigeration. Ice, they couldn't store, nothing. Who had time to sin? Rabbanu Shalom. Who had time to sin? So it wasn't a curse, it was a hatava. It was a wonderful, wonderful gift. But even though that became the new state of man's life, the corporeal and material component of his being and his drives and his lusts and his wants still had very much a leg up upon his spirituality. You know why? Because even though the earth didn't yield its bounty without work any the longer, but it had such nutrients and such strength, the earth itself, it was so significant that it's all of its minerals and all of its nutrients and everything that it had was so potent that it lasted a long time, and it was so energizing and so empowering that consequently that the people who ate from the earth were so what? Were so healthy and chizkei haguf and so physically strong. The anokim, giant like with huge strength. Says the Malbim, not everybody would say this, but said the Malbim, like if you dig really deep in the ground, what do you find nowadays at times in different digs? At Somas Anafilim, you find bones of these giants, Vanokim, Ubalechayim, Mishunim, animals, people, things that we don't have any of this kind nowadays. Because of in their what? Piecing together and imagining and understanding scientifically as to how large they were. Because all of them were destroyed in the Malbo. And none of them what? None of them existed after the Malbo and after the world was destroyed. But before, they were humongous. And they lived so long. We see at the beginning of Bereshis, right? The people lived so long. Adam should have lived 1,000 years. He schnuttered. He gave 70 to David HaMelech, so he only lived 930. They lived so long. Of 969, so they lived so long because they were eating from the ground. It was so unbelievable, empowering, and healthy. The Chazal tell us in the Midrash, and the wildest things of the kingdom, the lions and the leopards, everything, were nothing for them. They were like playmates, cats. But as a result of all of this physical being so much stronger than the spiritual in man that had to always beat it off, so the spiritual side of man became what? Became weakened. The and the physical part of man, and that which man seeks to feed in one form or another in terms of his physicality, became so much stronger and so much more readily fed than his spirituality. People are hungry, they wolf down a meal. Nobody comes in, right, sits down at a table and says, I'm a quart low on my ruchnius. I need ruchnius. Nobody comes out, I had such a hard day. I need to gas up in my ruchnius. Therefore, Kodesh Baruch Hu, for the betterment of man, he did it for his betterment, the kilo Sodom, and he cursed the ground, the Eis Hamabel, right? He cursed the ground and destroyed the lamb that provided man with that ability that kept on tearing him away from his ruchnius. But you know what happened then? Because he did, the Heklish Hateva, Kodesh Baruch Hu weakened the ground, he weakened nature. God weakened nature to the degree that the nutrients of the ground and the minerals and the air and the weather conditions and all of the food that could be produced from the earth was weakened as a result of the Mabul to the degree that we no longer produce these giants and no longer live those kind of lives of longevity. And why did God do it? Tigbar HaNefesh, so that the spiritual side of man post-Mabul could be strengthened. And the physicality of man can potentially be somewhat weakened and submissive to it. No longer will the physicality of man so easily be able to trump his spirituality. And this is what is expressed in the sacrifice of Noach, that he effectively looked at himself. He said, I should be on the altar. I should be giving up myself. I was saved. I wasn't deserving of being saved. I deserve death. I deserve decimation. And he effectively was ready to sacrifice his body on behalf of the greatest spirituality that he should have achieved and that is to be found within oneself, potentially. And when that was offered on the altar before Kodesh Baruch Hu took a whiff, specifically a whiff, and said, boy, could I discern the difference in man. Now indeed, now I will no longer continue to curse the earth, not as a result of man's sins. I won't continue to curse the earth on behalf of man, because man no longer needs the earth to be cursed, because the earth has been sufficiently changed so that what? So that indeed man can see with greater clarity insofar as his ruchnis over his what? Gashmis, and his willingness to give. Page 10, last but not least, comes along with Schwab, in his mind based Sheweva. Please look at the left side of the page on the bottom. We have in the Psukim describing the Karbanos that we've looked at the very beginning, where we describe how a person brings a carbon and the Kohen will flay the carbon, the Olah, and will cut it into its different parts, right? And then the bride and the Kohanim will place it upon the altar. It says Rav Schwab Malamed, bottom left. This teaches us, teaches us rather clearly that an Olah that entirely ascends to the heavens requires flaying of the skin, the dismemberment, cutting into pieces, the kolo, the ishim, and then totally consumed upon the fires of the Mizbeach. So if Schwab says, nowadays we no longer have a Beis HaMikdash. But the Gemara Brachos tells us, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, tfilos keneged tmidim tikkum. We know that our tfilos were enacted by Chazal in lieu of the tmidim, in lieu of the sacrifices that were brought. As a matter of fact, That's why we have chakras brought when the carbon tamid was brought, tamid chakras in the morning, first thing before any other karbanos. And the last carbon that was brought by the end of the day, before shkia, before sundown, which is when we daven mincha. So tefillah is connected to medium tiknam. We can't bring sacrifice in the base of Midrash, so we daven at those same times. V'harei atmidim continues of Shua, v'harei atmidim olos hayu. But the tmidim, as we know, were olos. They were fully consumed upon the mizbeach. Kohanim didn't get any portion of it. If that is the case, says Rav Shua, then we need say to ourselves that ha'avoda shalonu, that our avoda, and we say the Gemara and everything else, we say that avoda is tefillah. Avoda is davening. Rambam says that our avoda of tefillah, which is connected to tmidim, need what? Need be similar. Shehi avoda sa tefillah tu'una gamkin hefshed. It also requires what? Stripping, right of the flesh, nituach, and cut into pieces, v'kadal le'isha, and then being brought up as a korban. And he says, if you look at the Machaber and Shulchan Aruch, it's seen this alluded to where the Lashon is, and this is what Chasidim, remember Chasidim lived in Mishur Sadin, and Anshe Maisa, people of great, of enormous actions. If you wanted to know what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants man to act like, you looked at them. And what did they used to do? So I know that, what do we learn in Chazal? That Chasidim ho yishohim shah achas, they used to wait an hour before they daven, then they daven, and then they would wait an hour afterwards. And people wonder themselves, they say to themselves, they're a bunch of batlanim, they have nothing better to do. So they come to shul and they wait around for an hour before they daven, and they have nothing better to do, and they sit around afterwards. Says the Mechaber, Chasidim Anshe Ma'aseh Shoyim Mispodedim, they would come to tefillah, and they would effectively what? Mispodedim. They would engage in self-introspection, self-thought, and would focus their thoughts, their machshavos, and their hearts entirely upon their prayers, the tefillos. Now go to the right column on top, follow the arrow, until they would reach what? The hispashtus hagashmis, is the lashon of the Machaber Shulchan Aruch, until they would effectively achieve what? A hispashtus hagashmis, a removal of everything physical and material from themselves, from their minds. And for the elevation and empowering of their seichel, which is their ruchnius, of their minds. And why would they? That's what the Mechaber says. Explains of Schwab. Why did they do this? Who can they get hefshek? Because this was the way that they used to what? Remove the skin. Just like they used to remove the skin from the carbon an animal brought. Because it's only the outer part. It's not the blood and the guts and the neshama, as it were, of the animal. And that had to be removed before the rest was placed as a carbon to Hashem. So too, when we approach a Kodesh Baruch Hu in prayer, so too a person who davens has to lahavshik gashmi. So we have to try to remove all of our thoughts and all of the things that we normally think about. Oh, I've got to pick up my child here, and I have to go to the cleaners here to pick up the cleaners, and I have to remember to go and to pick that up at the store, and I have to take this into the post office, and I have to call so-and-so. We try to remove all of our thoughts that focus upon ourselves. Well, the galos pinimi yisnafsho, in order to what? In order to reveal and be able to expose, as it were, the inner essence of our very souls. Lasos filoso rachamin v'sachanun fnei hamokom. In order to turn to Rabbanu Shalom and effectively say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. I can't bring a korban, but I offer you my tefillah. I offer you my tefillos, placing the ruchnis above the chumrius of the Malbim. I offer you what I have to give. Understanding that Noach, when he left this table, understood that it's a world of kindness that serves as a foundation. Understanding, according to the Malbim, that I have that ability to a much greater degree than those who live pre the Malbim, because things have been shifted around insofar as the nutrients in the ground. When we turn to Kodesh Baruch Hu and we try to just think of whom we're supposed to be before Kodesh Baruch Hu and what we're supposed to do spiritually, that's what our avodah and tefillah is really all about. And if that's true, when we have the support and the energy and the drive and the inspiration of a minyan in shul, which is our Beis HaMikdash Ma'at, But we don't have those things when we daven b'yechidus at home. How much more so, according to this, do we have to engage in the different things of the Karban, in the removing of the things that shouldn't befuddle us and clog our thoughts? We have to get naked, as it were, spiritually, to be honest sufficiently with ourselves, who we really are, and to remove the facade, whom we really are, and present ourselves before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, saying to him, this is who we are, and we want to be better. We want to accomplish more. We want to serve you more. Because at the end of the day, we are Avdei HaMakom. We are the servants of the Ribono Shel Olam, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Here to serve God, here to serve others. Because that's the foundation of life. Olam Chesed Yibana, that's the foundation of the world. And that's really the purpose of Karbanos. Even beyond as an antidote of the deification of these animals as objects of Avodah Zarah, according to the Rambam. In alignment and consignment with the Rambam that we're offering ourselves, but even so much more understanding the little that we have to give, but how full it can be, and how deeply it can be given. And the wellspring of redefining ourselves in that endeavor to be kinder people. And I think that nowadays, when all of us are, we are incarcerated in our own tevos. And the world outside, just like the storms and the waters, is so dangerous and nobody could exit the teva, otherwise they would be killed. The world outside is not the same safe haven, safe place that it used to be. Just 3 weeks ago, in the United States. So we have to ask ourselves and work on our tefillah, and work on our chesed, how we can be assistance and camaraderie to others, and how we can better the world. And in that schus, everybody should be granted a richas yomim. Everyone should be granted longevity. Those who are sick should be granted refuos. Those who are generally elderly and feeble should be granted chizik from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and longevity in arichas yomim. And everyone else, arichas yomim, longevity and safety and wellness and the ability to be able to daven for others so strongly that soon, b'mheira, we should be able to daven with others. Have a good night. Please stay well, stay safe, and have a good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank you, Rabbi Sprung.
Pleasure.
Be well.
You too.